Hey everybody, Coach Stacy Lynn here. Today I want to read you a quote from this book called Careless People. And if you haven't heard about this book, it's actually it's a best-selling book. It's a memoir of Sarah Lynn Williams, who, here is her picture here. That's her right there. Who is an attorney. She was a diplomat to the UN. She grew up in New Zealand. And she was attacked by a shark when she was 13 years old. Anyway, she starts this book out with a quote from The Great Gatsby. And the quote is this. It's from F. Scott Fitzgerald. He writes, "They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness, or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess that they had made." So I bring this up. Yeah, I do. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because Sarah Lynn Williams, she starts this book out, and here on the cover, you see that? That's a shark. Don't. It's not funny, really. But anyway, she starts out this book talking about when she was 13 years old, how she was attacked by this shark. She was in the ocean, obviously, and this shark came up and bit her and started shaking her and tried to bring her underground. And somehow, miraculously, she was able to get away from this shark. And to make a very long story short, when she got away, eventually she was able to go to the, quote, doctor. And the doctor basically said, "Oh, it's just a flesh wound. I'll give you a little bit of pain meds. We'll patch you up here. And we will send you back home and you'll be fine." Later that night, she starts throwing up a whole bunch of stuff, and she told her mother and her father, and they basically ignored her. And they were like, "You're fine, just go back to sleep." And at one point in the night, she starts talking about how she couldn't breathe, and she was trying to tell her mom, I can't breathe. And her mom's like, "Whatever, go back to sleep." By the morning, she almost passed out and went into a coma, and before her mother actually responded to her. And to make a very long story short, she eventually had her parents take her to the same doctor that they brought her to the first time. He ended up having to cut her and do some stuff, and they eventually got her into surgery, and where she ended up surviving, fortunately. And this is how this book starts. As I was reading this book, I could not help but think about how many times I have had in my life where I've reached out to somebody, or I've tried to convey to somebody a problem or something going on, only for it to fall on deaf ears, which is exactly what happened to this woman. And of all the people in your life to have something fall on deaf ears, your parents, right? I mean, hello, these are your parents. They're the ones that are actually supposed to be caring about you more than anybody on the planet. But here you are vomiting, and it turned out that she was literally throwing up crap because her bowels were leaking into her system, which was septic at that point. Anyway, I know. Good story, isn't it? Well, it turns out that this is a best-selling book for a reason, and if you haven't heard of this book, Careless People, it's really an insider's look at the corruption at Facebook. And apparently Facebook and a whole bunch of other people have tried to not have this book be published and read because it reveals things that, frankly, Facebook doesn't want you to know. And apparently I got $3 off. No, I didn't, actually. I should just remove this sticker though so I can see the whole title. See if I can do it without ripping anything. There we go. Careless people. And that is basically the topic, though, I wanted to bring up today. I wanted to use that as an example, though, because so often survivors of abuse are intended victims of, quote, careless people. People who don't really mean harm, but they end up causing great harm. And then, frankly, sometimes victims are victims of people who are just flat out sociopaths and they're evil people. And they really do intend to cause harm. What stood out to me so far, and I've only read the first chapter of the book, so I can't say much about the rest of the book. But so far, what's really stood out to me about Sarah is that she refuses and refused to be stopped. Instead of wallowing in self-pity about where she was in life and how she was treated by her parents, and also instead of being afraid of going back into the ocean and swimming, which is something she said she loved to do. She said literally within a year of this shark attack, she was back in the ocean because she said she refused to let that incident hinder her from something she loved to do. And I thought, what a great lesson to learn, because so many people don't, right? So many people are tied to their identity as a victim. And today, I don't want to go on long. I just want to throw out a question to you, and that is this. If you are somebody who has had a traumatic event happen in your life, and this is how you identify yourself, right? You're like, I'm a blank survivor, fill in that blank. How would your life be different if you removed that storyline from your life? So in other words, for her, you know, she could have wallowed for the rest of her life and said, you know what? I hate sharks. I'm never going to go in the water because I'm scared a shark's going to attack me again. And, you know, I almost died when I was 13 of it. And she could have wrote a whole book about the evils of sharks, right? And it's interesting because I'm actually also reading Moby Dick right now. I'll show you my copy of the book. Here, this book here, Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Another interesting book. This is a whale of a tale, people. And I'm actually only, I'm only this far into it. This is a big book. I'm actually in the middle of like 5 books right now. So you're going to hear about all these books as we go through these videos. But the interesting thing about this book is that Ishmael, the main narrator and character in this book, he makes a really valid, interesting point about how you see the world. And one of the things he says, and I'm totally paraphrasing this, is he says, how you see the world depends on what side of the window you're looking at. If the window has frost on it and you're on the inside, you can look out and see a certain way. But if you're on the outside of the window outdoors and you're looking into a frosted window, you're going to see the situation a little bit differently. Anyway, that goes back to my point here, bringing up both these books, is that we can choose how we walk and identify with who we are. Right? So we can be a victim and just be a perpetual victim. And I know people like that. I know people who they identify themselves as, quote, a diagnosis, or they identify themselves with their illness, or whatever their highest weakness is, that's who they are. And honestly, it drives me crazy because I don't see any Christian that way. I mean, if you're a believer anyway, your identity is in being a child of God. And you are royalty in God's kingdom, and you're favored, right? But the problem is that if you're not walking in that identity, then you're always going to see yourself as kind of the scum or the gum on the bottom of somebody's shoe, right? And that isn't going to help you do anything except wallow and complain and moan and groan and all that. And you cannot show me where Jesus did that. And that is the issue, right? So as Christians, if you're a follower of Christ, one of your purposes in life is to become more like Christ. And so you got to ask yourself, did Christ walk around being a victim? You know, he could have. I mean, think about it. So here's Jesus. He is walking, he's on a mission from God. After all, he is God, but he came down from heaven to earth to have a mission from God. And all of a sudden, the religious leaders, the Pharisees of the day, there they are. They're confronting everything that he says, you know, and Jesus never walked away downcast. He didn't walk away going, man, I give up. These people don't get it. I should throw away my whole mission. Even these 12 bozos I picked to be my disciples, they're not even getting it sometimes. Why do I even bother? Ho-hum is me. Right? If Jesus did that, what a lousy savior he would have been. Don't you think? It'd be like, why would I want to follow that guy? And yet, that is the mentality of so many believers. They're just like, oh, who am I? What am I? Oh, this is who I am. I stubbed my toe when I was 3 and my toe hurts still, and I'm 85 now, and blah, 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 blah. Don't give up. Don't identify yourself with a lie. That's my point. And you know what's interesting is that some of the most harrowing and inspiring stories are from people who aren't Christians, because they actually get it. They actually get that they're not meant to be defeated or wallow in a circumstance that God gave them the power to get through and overcome. So how much more so you if you're following the Lord? So, going back to my question, what would your life be like if you removed that story that you tell yourself out of your life? What would it be like? Would it be better? Do you want it to be better? You know, Jesus asked this guy in the Bible, hey, do you want to get well? And he came up with an excuse, well, I don't have anybody put me into the pool. That wasn't the question. The question was, do you want to get well? Do you want to get better? One of my goals here is to help you have a better day. And the way that you have a better day is by choosing your mindset and how you can think. And I'm not talking a worldly mindset, because that drives me crazy. I'm talking about being biblical in your thinking and thinking more like Jesus, because Jesus is our model. And if you're not looking at him and how he treated people and how he acted in his own walk with God, then you're lacking in your spiritual growth, because Jesus was not a victim, and he was somebody who changed the world, and he loves you. So I want you to think about that question today and let me know if you have any thoughts, and I hope you have a better day, because you're a victor in him, people.